What she found was that kids reacted in a few distinct, wildly predictable patterns. Some kids got upset when mom left, but calmed down fast and happily once she came back. These kids were labeled secure. Some got extremely distressed and stayed distressed even after mom returned, almost punishing her with their cries. These were anxious. And some barely reacted on the outside at all, even though their heart rate and stress hormones told a completely different story underneath. Avoidant. For decades, this stayed locked inside child psychology. Babies, toddlers, strange rooms with one-way mirrors. Then, in the late 1980s, two researchers named Cindy Hazan and Philip Shaver asked a question that changed everything. What if adults do this too? What if the exact way you bonded with your caregiver as an infant is basically the operating system quietly running your love life right now, 30 years later? They published a short quiz in a local newspaper. 3 descriptions of how people relate to romantic partners. Which one sounds most like you? And the results lined up with the toddler data almost perfectly. A little over half of adults landed in the secure camp. Around 20% were anxious, roughly 25% avoidant, and a small remainder, 3 to 5%, were some tangled combination of both, sometimes called disorganized or fearful avoidant. People who want closeness and are quietly terrified of it at the exact same time. This is where our authors come in. Dr. Amir Levine, a psychiatrist who was working with mothers and infants at Columbia University, kept noticing the same 3-pattern dance showing up everywhere, not just in the nursery, but at dinner parties, in his friends' relationships, in his own dating life. So he called his longtime friend Rachel Heller, and together they set out to do something nobody had really pulled off before. Take 20 years of dense academic research and turn it into something you could actually use on a random Tuesday night, staring at your phone, wondering why he hasn't texted back. Act 2. The Dependency Paradox. Here's where the book does something that genuinely surprised me. It takes a belief almost all of us nod along to without question, that needing someone too much is a character flaw, that the strong, healthy move is to not need anybody, and it just quietly takes it apart. Quick thought experiment. Picture your phone charger. If you know with total certainty that it's sitting right there on your desk, plugged in, working, available the second you need it, how much do you actually think about your battery percentage during the day? Basically, never. You use your phone, it gets low, you plug it in, you forget about it completely. Now imagine your charger only sometimes works. Sometimes it's there. Sometimes someone's hidden it. Sometimes it only charges if you hold the cable at exactly the right angle and don't breathe on it wrong. How much are you thinking about your battery percentage now? Constantly. You're basically staring at that little number in the corner of your screen all day, every day. That's the difference between a secure relationship and an insecure one. And here's the part that flips the whole cultural script. The people with the reliable charger, the ones who trust their person is actually there, are not the ones who end up clingy or dependent. They're the ones who go off and live full, independent lives. They take career risks, they travel, they pour energy into friendships and hobbies because their emotional battery is quietly handled in the background. It's the people with the unreliable charger who become anxious and hyper-focused and hard to be around. Researchers actually have a name for this. They call it the dependency paradox. The more reliably dependent you're allowed to be on someone, the more independent you actually become. Which means that old idea, soothe yourself, handle your own emotions, don't need your partner too much, isn't just slightly off. According to the actual science, it's backwards. We are not wired to be little emotional islands, each self-sufficiently generating our own calm. We're wired to borrow it from the people we're bonded to. Needing your partner isn't the crack in the foundation of a relationship. It is the foundation. Think about the last person who really got under your skin. Not the obvious kind of heartbreak, The slow kind. The kind where you found yourself checking your phone every 4 minutes because they said they'd text later, and later never quite arrived. Or maybe you were the other one, the one who felt completely fine until things got close. And then, out of nowhere, you needed space. You couldn't even explain why. You just knew the walls were closing in. Here's the strange part. Neither of you was crazy. Neither of you was too much. And neither of you was too cold. You were both running code that got written into your brain before you could even talk, probably before you could even walk. And here's the part that should make you a little angry. Nobody ever sat you down and explained this. You got relationship advice from love songs, from your friends' worst breakups, from movies where the chase is romantic instead of exhausting. Nobody handed you the actual manual. In 2010, 2 researchers sat down and put a name to something therapists had been dancing around for decades. A hidden operating system running underneath almost every relationship you've ever had. It explains why you keep falling for the same type over and over, with a different face each time. It explains why calm, reliable love can somehow feel boring, while the person who runs hot and cold feels like fireworks. And it explains why loving someone with your whole chest was never, by itself, going to be enough to make the relationship work. The book is called Attached by Dr. Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, and it's quietly become the book therapists recommend most to anyone who's looked at their own dating history and thought, why do I keep doing this to myself? By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which of the 3, well, technically 4 categories you fall into. And more importantly, you're going to understand why you keep ending up in the same relationship wearing a different name. Let's get into it. Act 1. The Discovery. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Maya. Not her real name, but her story is one you've probably lived some version of yourself. Maya meets a guy at a friend's dinner party. He's magnetic. Not conventionally charming exactly, intense. The kind of eye contact that makes you forget what you were saying mid-sentence. Within a week, they're texting constantly. He says things like, "I've never met anyone like you," and "Seriously, call me whenever, day or night." Maya, who has always thought of herself as pretty low maintenance, pretty together, finds herself falling hard and fast. Then the replies start slowing down. He's just really busy with work right now. He doesn't really do the whole texting all day thing. But then, completely out of nowhere, he shows up at her door with flowers and an apology so sincere, she forgets to even ask what exactly he's apologizing for. This happens again, and then again. Each time he pulls back, Maya gets a little more anxious. Each time he swoops back in, she gets a little more hooked. Within 2 months, this together, low-maintenance woman is refreshing her messages like it's a slot machine, canceling plans with friends just in case he calls, and, she'll only admit this after a second glass of wine, once cried in a parking lot before a big meeting because he hadn't texted since the night before. Her friends are baffled. This isn't her. She's usually the one giving other people advice. So what happened to Maya? Here's the thing. Nothing was wrong with Maya. Her brain was doing exactly what it evolved to do. Back in the 1950s, a British psychiatrist named John Bowlby started asking a question nobody in his field really wanted to touch. Why do babies completely fall apart when they're separated from their caregiver? The going theory at the time was almost embarrassingly simple. Babies love their mothers because mothers equal food. That's it. Pure transaction. But Bowlby kept noticing something that didn't add up. Babies who had every physical need met, warm, fed, clean, safe from harm, but who lacked one consistent, loving caregiver, still fell apart developmentally. Connection, it turned out, wasn't a nice bonus. It was as essential as food and water. A researcher named Mary Ainsworth pushed this further with a now famous experiment. She'd bring a toddler and their mother into a room, then have the mother quietly step out for a few minutes while a stranger stayed with the child. All right, let's actually break these down, because chances are you've already got a guess about which one is you. The anxious attachment style. If you're anxious, your internal radar for relationship threats is, frankly, incredible. Not paranoid, accurate. Researchers have actually tested this. People with anxious attachment are measurably quicker and more precise at picking up subtle shifts in someone's facial expression than anyone else in the study. You're not imagining that his voice changed. You're not making up that she seemed distracted at dinner. Statistically, you're right more often than not. The problem was never the radar. The problem is what happens the second the alarm goes off. Once an anxious attachment system senses a threat, a slower reply, a canceled plan, a slightly flatter tone of voice, it doesn't quietly note it and move on with its day. It floods you. Suddenly, you can't focus on the report that's due in an hour. You're replaying the last conversation from 6 different angles. You're doing that thing where you analyze a single lowercase k for hidden meaning. Researchers call this pattern activating strategies. Basically, any thought or behavior whose entire job is to get you back in contact with your person right now by whatever means necessary. Picture someone, let's call him Dev. And yes, you probably know a Dev. Maybe you are a Dev. Lying in bed at 1 a.m, phone 6 inches from his face, doing that thing where you open the chat, see they were last seen 20 minutes ago, and your stomach just drops. He's not being dramatic. His brain is running an ancient survival program that says proximity to your attachment figure equals survival. Distance equals danger. It's the exact same circuitry that made a toddler wail the second mom left the room. It's just wearing a hoodie and holding an iPhone now. And here's the cruel twist. Genuinely one of the most useful things in the whole book. The exact behavior anxious attachment pushes you toward, the double text, the going silent as a kind of punishment, the subtle guilt trip, is usually the very thing that pushes an already hesitant partner further away, which makes the alarm scream louder, which makes you reach even harder. It's not that anxious people are bad at relationships. It's that they're brilliant at detecting a fire and then, understandably, panic in ways that sometimes fan the flames instead of putting them out. The avoidant attachment style. Now, flip it entirely. If anxious people have a radar for danger, avoidant people have something more like a radar for cages. If you're avoidant, closeness doesn't register as safety. It registers as a loss of yourself. You're probably the one everyone describes as so independent, so chill, doesn't need anybody. And to be fair, part of that really is true. But underneath, there's often a quieter story. Real intimacy makes your skin itch a little. And over the years, you've built an impressively efficient toolkit for keeping it at a safe distance, usually without ever consciously deciding to. This toolkit has a few signature moves. Suddenly noticing your partner's laugh is a bit much, right around the time things start feeling serious. Not saying I love you back, but not leaving either. Going quiet for a few days right after an unusually good, close weekend together, almost like your nervous system hit a limit and slammed an emergency brake you didn't know existed. Keeping one foot out the door with an old flame, just as friends, at suspiciously convenient moments. Researchers call these deactivating strategies. And just like the anxious person's activating strategies, they're not calculated manipulation. They're an old alarm system, just wired to trip on closeness instead of distance. Picture someone, let's call her Ishita, 3 months into a genuinely good relationship. Things are going well. A little too well, some quiet part of her brain whispers. So, without ever deciding to, she starts staying late at work more often. She stops being the one to suggest plans. When her partner says, "I really missed you this week," something in her chest tightens instead of warms. She's not falling out of love. She's not bored. Her attachment system has simply, quietly filed, "This is going well," under threat, and done what it's always done, created a bit of distance so she can breathe again. Here's the part avoidant viewers especially need to hear, because it's the one thing that changed how I personally think about this. Independence and avoidance are not the same thing, even though from the inside, they feel identical. Real independence means being close to someone and still having a self. Avoidant attachment means needing distance in order to feel like you have a self at all. And that, if you actually sit with it, is a much lonelier place to live than it looks from the outside. The secure attachment style. And then there's secure attachment, which, even the authors admit this, sounds almost boring to describe on paper. No wild highs, no devastating lows, which is kind of the entire point. If you're secure, you're comfortable depending on people, and comfortable having them depend on you right back. Conflict doesn't threaten the whole relationship in your head. It's just a problem waiting to be solved. You can say, "I miss you," without a strategy behind it. You don't calculate your reply times. And here's the genuinely wild part, backed by actual research. Secure people create what's called a buffering effect. Put a secure person in a relationship with an anxious or avoidant partner, and over time, the less secure partner's relationship satisfaction actually rises to meet the secure ones. Security, it turns out, is almost contagious. But, and this matters a lot, secure isn't a personality type. Secure people aren't all extroverts or all calm, unbothered golden retrievers of humans. They come in every flavor. Shy engineers, loud social butterflies, awkward people, funny people, serious people, wonderfully chaotic people. What they share isn't a personality. It's a nervous system that isn't constantly bracing for either abandonment or engulfment. And here's the genuinely hopeful part the book spends real time proving. Security isn't only something you're born with. Researchers actually call it earned security, meaning that if you didn't start out secure, you can build it through self-awareness, sometimes through therapy, and often simply through being in a relationship with someone secure long enough for your nervous system to slowly learn a new lesson. It's actually safe now to stop bracing. Quick gut check. Let them actually think about it. Answer this one honestly, in your head. When you sense your partner pulling away, even slightly, does your first instinct scream, "Get closer, fix this, don't let this slip away"? That's anxious. Does it quietly whisper, "Give me some room to breathe"? That's avoidant. Or do you just check in, ask what's going on, and trust it's probably fine? That's secure. And if your honest answer was, "I think I do all three depending on who I'm with," congratulations, that's actually completely normal too. Attachment style isn't a life sentence tattooed on your soul. It shifts depending on who you're with, which is exactly why the rest of this video matters. Spotting it in someone else. Spotting your own style is one thing. Spotting it in the person across from you on date 3 is a whole different skill. And the book spends an entire chapter on it, because here's the trap. When you're excited about someone, your brain automatically airbrushes them. Red flags quietly get reclassified as quirky or "he's just busy." So the actual advice is almost embarrassingly simple. Stop listening to what people say about themselves and start watching what they consistently do. Words are cheap and often sincere in the moment and meaningless a week later. Patterns don't lie. Does he actually follow through on plans, or just suggest them enthusiastically and then go quiet? When something upsets her, does she tell you, or does she go cold and expect you to guess? Do they get more relaxed as things get closer, or more distant? You're not looking for one bad text message. You're looking for the shape of a pattern, repeating itself 3, 4, 5 times in a row. Here's one small, almost sneaky test the book suggests. Pay attention to how someone reacts the first time you express even a mild need. Running 10 minutes late, wanting to confirm plans a day ahead, asking them to text when they land. Secure people, and people capable of getting there, will simply accommodate it, or at worst, ask a clarifying question. People who scoff, tease you for being high maintenance, or make you feel slightly ridiculous for asking, that reaction is data. File it away. Act 4. The anxious avoidant trap. Here's a question that might sting a little. Why do anxious and avoidant people so often end up together? You'd think two such different operating systems would repel each other on contact. Instead, they're often magnetically drawn together, and understanding exactly why might be the single most useful idea in this entire book. To an anxious person, an avoidant partner's coolness doesn't register as a red flag. It registers as chemistry, as a challenge worth winning. Here's the uncomfortable mechanism behind that. Consistent, reliable affection can genuinely feel a little flat, especially if you've never really experienced it before. But someone who's warm, then cold, then warm again, that unpredictability lights up almost the exact same reward circuitry as a slot machine. Psychologists have a term for it: intermittent reinforcement. When a reward arrives unpredictably instead of reliably, you become more obsessed with chasing it, not less. It's the same basic mechanism that makes refreshing your phone so hard to stop doing. Your brain isn't really craving the reward itself, it's craving the chase. So an anxious person meets an avoidant person, and neurologically, it's basically fireworks. Meanwhile, a secure, consistent person who replies promptly and says exactly what they mean, some part of the anxious brain actually flags that as suspicious. Or worse, boring. Where's the spark? Here's the plot twist. The spark was never love. It was just your nervous system getting yanked around on a string, and it's very good at disguising that sensation as butterflies. Once an anxious and avoidant person actually get together, here's what happens. And I want you to really picture this because it's almost mechanical in how predictable it is. The avoidant partner does something that creates a little distance. Works late, seems a bit off, doesn't text as much for a couple of days. The anxious partner's internal alarm goes off and they reach for more closeness. More texts, more questions, more "are we okay" conversations. But to the avoidant partner, that reaching doesn't feel like love. It feels like pressure, like the walls closing in. So they deactivate even harder and pull back even more, which spikes the anxious partner's alarm even louder, which makes them reach even harder. Round and round. The book calls this the anxious avoidant trap. And it's brutal specifically because both people are doing exactly what their nervous system has always insisted keeps them safe, while accidentally making their partner feel the exact opposite of safe. And here's the part that really got me. This almost never shows up in real life as an actual conversation about attachment. It shows up as a fight about something small and dumb, an argument about whether to get a dog, about who's supposed to plan the weekend, about how often you're supposed to see each other's friends. On the surface, it's logistics and scheduling and a mildly annoying pet debate. Underneath, it is almost always the exact same conversation, playing on a loop. Can I actually trust that you're here? Versus, can I trust that I still get to be myself? Once you know to look for this pattern, you will start noticing it in half the couples you know, possibly including yourself. Act 5. Becoming Secure, the Toolkit. One more thing worth saying clearly, because the book is honest about it and I want to be too. Sometimes an anxious avoidant pairing doesn't just stay uncomfortable. It tips into something genuinely harmful. Constant criticism disguised as jokes. Affection that only shows up after you've been made to feel small first. The exhausting part is that when you're inside a pattern like that for long enough, it quietly becomes your new normal, and you stop noticing how far it's drifted from what a relationship is actually supposed to feel like. If any part of that just made your stomach drop a little, That's worth paying real attention to. The authors are clear on this point. People do leave situations like that, and they do go on to build relationships that feel nothing like it. That's genuinely one of the more hopeful findings in the whole book. This stuff is not a life sentence. Okay, so what do you actually do with all of this? This is where the book stops being a diagnosis and starts being a toolkit. And this is the part most quick summaries skip entirely, so stick with me. First, if you just recognized yourself as anxious or avoidant somewhere in the last 15 minutes, take a breath. This isn't a permanent label, and it isn't your personality. It's your nervous system's best guess, formed a long time ago, about what keeps you safe in close relationships. Best guesses can be updated. That's earned security in action, and thousands of people have genuinely done it. Sometimes through therapy, sometimes through hard-won self-awareness, and very often just by staying in a relationship with someone secure enough to slowly teach their nervous system a new lesson. The single biggest practical tool the authors hand you is what they call effective communication. And it's disarmingly simple, even though almost nobody actually does it on the first try. It comes down to 5 moves. None of this is complicated. All of it is hard, especially the first few times you try it. But every single person who's ever moved from anxious or avoidant towards secure did it exactly this way. One slightly too honest conversation at a time. Conclusion. Let's close with something the authors admit about themselves, and it might be the most human moment in the entire book. Even after years of studying this professionally, they once watched a romantic movie and caught themselves rooting hard for exactly the kind of relationship the whole book warns you about: magnetic, independent, full of mixed signals. It made them realize just how deep these myths actually run, even in people who supposedly know better. Myth 1, that everyone has the same capacity for closeness, and that love, given enough time, will unlock it in anyone. It won't. Some people can go deep. Some people, right now, at exactly this point in their life, genuinely can't, no matter how much they love you back. Myth 2, that a milestone, marriage, moving in together, a ring, is proof that someone has finally arrived at readiness. Commitment and the actual capacity for intimacy are not the same thing. You can say "I do" and still be avoidant. You can say "I do" and still be anxious underneath the whole ceremony. Myth 3, and this might be the biggest one, that your emotional needs are entirely your own job to manage, and that wanting your partner to help meet them somehow makes you needy or weak. In an actual functioning partnership, both people are supposed to carry that weight together. That's not neediness. That is, genuinely, the entire point of having a partner in the first place. Here's what this book ultimately argues, and I think it's worth sitting with for a second. Your relationships are not random. It's not just bad luck or bad timing or the wrong type of person for me over and over again. There's a pattern. And once you can actually see it, in yourself and in the people you keep getting drawn to, you get to stop simply reacting to it and start choosing differently. That doesn't mean every relationship suddenly becomes easy. It means you finally understand the game you've been playing this whole time, which might honestly be the most useful 30-something minutes you spend on your love life all year. If you saw yourself somewhere in this video, anxious, avoidant, secure, or that messy fourth category, tell me exactly where in the comments. I genuinely want to know, and I promise you, you are nowhere near the only one. And if this saved you from analyzing one more lowercase k at midnight, do me a favor and hit subscribe. Every week, we take a book like this one and turn it into 30 honest minutes, so you don't have to read all 260 pages at 1 a.m. wondering what's wrong with you. Spoiler, nothing's wrong with you. You just never got handed the manual. Now you have it. See you in the next one. Frame it around your own need, not your partner's failure. "I need to feel like I matter to you" lands completely differently than "you never make time for me," even when you mean roughly the same thing. Be specific. Vague hurt is basically impossible to fix, but when you don't reply for 6 hours, I spiral a little. Give someone an actual, concrete thing to do differently. Don't turn it into an attack. The second your partner feels like they're on trial, the real conversation is already over. And finally, don't apologize for having needs in the first place. Needing reassurance, needing space, needing consistency, these aren't character flaws you owe anyone an explanation for. They're just your needs. Let's make this real for a second. Imagine texting someone you've been seeing for about a month. "Hey, I've noticed you felt a little distant this week, and honestly, it's making me anxious. Is everything okay with us?" That's it. That's the entire move. No games, no strategically timed 3-day silence, no suspiciously happy photo posted just to stir up jealousy. Just the truth, said plainly, out loud. And here's why this actually works better than it sounds. How someone responds to one honest sentence like that will tell you more about your future with them than 3 more months of guessing games ever could. If they lean in, get curious, and reassure you, that's someone capable of meeting you. If they get defensive, dismissive, or just quietly vanish, you've saved yourself another 6 months of decoding mixed signals. And strange as it sounds, that's a win too. Remember Maya from the very start of this video? A while after that relationship finally burned itself out, she tried this exact move on someone new who seemed a little inconsistent early on. She said the honest thing on date 4 instead of quietly spiraling for 6 weeks. He leaned in immediately, almost relieved he didn't have to guess anymore. They're still together. Turns out the spark she'd spent years chasing was never gone once the anxiety faded. It just started coming from a much quieter, steadier place. If you lean anxious and you're currently dating, the book has one more piece of advice that sounds almost too simple to work. Stop putting all your hope in one person too early. Not because you should play it cool or run some kind of strategy, the opposite actually, but because when your entire nervous system is riding on whether one specific human being texts back tonight, you completely lose the ability to objectively evaluate whether they're actually right for you. Meet a few people. Give your attachment system a wider field to focus on instead of one single target to obsess over. This isn't about detachment. It's about staying grounded enough to actually clock red flags instead of quietly explaining them away at 2 a.m. And if you're already in a relationship, whatever your styles happen to be, the research on secure couples boils down to a small, repeatable set of habits. They genuinely care about their partner's version of the story, not just about winning the argument. They fight about the actual issue in front of them instead of dragging in 5 years of old, half-healed grievances. They stay in the room instead of shutting down or storming out. And they say the vulnerable thing out loud instead of quietly hoping their partner will somehow just guess it. Let's make even that concrete. Take a couple, call them Priya and Noah, who've had a version of the same argument for 3 years running. Every long weekend, Noah wants to visit his family 2 hours away. Priya dreads it. The drive, the small talk, feeling like a guest in someone else's house. Instead of either of them just getting their way every single time, they've built something that works. When Priya can tell Noah is genuinely missing his family, she offers to go, even half-heartedly. When Noah can tell Priya is running on empty, he lets the visit slide and plans something low-key at home, but makes sure to schedule a solo trip to see his parents soon after, so he's not quietly resentful for a month. It's not glamorous. Nobody wins every single round, but underneath the compromise is something that matters more than logistics. Both of them are actually tracking whether the other person is doing okay, not just whether they personally got their way. That's the whole secret, really. Conflict, according to the research, isn't proof a relationship is broken. It's just two nervous systems negotiating. It doesn't matter whether you're fighting about family visits or vacation plans or whose turn it is to load the dishwasher. What matters is whether, underneath the argument, you're both still quietly on the same team.